Derby, in the meantime, minutes ago, seconds ago, have just made a statement, and they say the club disputes that any points deduction at any time is appropriate, and disputes that it's lawful for the EFL to seek to impose one retrospectively, altering the final league placings after the season has already finished. So Derby obviously getting a bit jittery here.
Well, of course they're going to
thinking retrospectively
they're going to get
their
marker
relegated,
because the challenge for them is that would the EFL, they've clearly got a judgment that's got financial basis to it. They've been penalised for their accountancy principles. Whether they like it or they're not, the disciplinary panel, which is not the EFL, by the way, the disciplinary panel is a separate body that is appointed by the EFL that reports back to the EFL, and the EFL implement. That's all it is, right? So by definition, they've been found guilty by an independent panel that says you can't amortise your players this way. And what that basically means is you can't put your players on your balance sheet and not depreciate them in a straight line, as you haven't done. You've tried to load it at the back end, and you can't do. Every other football club in English football doesn't do it the way you've done it, and you've done it in a certain way, and it breaches an accountancy principle. Now, what I think will happen is I don't think Derby will appeal. I think the EFL will appeal this disciplinary finding to ramp up the narrative and move it into points. And I think Derby are trying to get ahead of this and suggest that any points that may be taken from them cannot be retrospective. And in fairness to them, there's no precedent for it, and I don't think the disciplinary panel will recommend, or the EFL try to implement a retrospective points penalty. I think it's more likely to be a current one, but it then leads on to something even more challenging for Derby, because they've got to go and rewrite their last 3 years' accounts, because the way that they valued their players on their balance sheet has now been told, you can't do it that way, you've got to do it a different way. Now, if that brings out Derby losing more than £39 million over that 3-year period, Derby are not only going to get sanctioned for their accountancy principles, they're moving into the territory of being sanctioned for breaches of financial fair play.
Wow. Which would mean a points deduction.
Which would categorically mean a points deduction.
So they're paddling upstream here. They're retaliating first here, if you like, and getting in
they're
first.
laying their marker down, but I think that with the greatest will in the world, the EFL are not going to have this. And the same principle will apply about how the EFL, I think they'll streamline their process. I think the problem the EFL have got is they haven't got a streamlined process with legal representation and accountants. I think people like Trevor Birch, who come from that profession, will sit here and say, well, we've got to get these adjudications done quicker and faster and in more real time. So we've got to get a proper body of available barristers, available accountants that are available like that, to be able to make these decisions quickly, because I think the biggest problem they've got is a lack of availability of certain professionals and a lack of professionalism in setting up that particular parameter.
Sure.
And I think people like Birchie will fix that.
Trevor Birch.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact is, Simon, we're 7 weeks away from the start of the new season, and Wycombe have been dragged into this as well, because they don't know until Derby know their fate.
But Wycombe will be dragged in with an upside potential, so they're going to get on with whatever they've got to get on with, right?
Oh, yeah, but I mean, they've got to plan as well, though.
Well, of course they have, and they'll plan for what's in front of them, which is playing in League One. And if the wonderful benefit comes back to them of playing in the Championship, then they'll get another £6 million and get on with it, won't they? Because they'll get the distribution money relevant to the Championship. Yeah. It's not ideal, but at least we're seeing the EFL have some forward thinking by putting an interchangeable plan in place, because if they do have to enact it, at least they've laid the foundation. They won't enact it.
And that's Trevor Birch for you, actually.
That's Trevor Birch. That's guaranteed. That's got Trevor's fingerprints over it.
You and I are friends with Mel Morris. I
don't want this for Mel, but Mel's opened this door. Mel opened that door with greatest will in the world 4 or 5 years ago, or certainly 3 years ago, when he sat in front of us revaluing the stadium. You know what I said? I said, very cute, Mel. Very cute, you revaluing the stadium, and the only really reason why you're revaluing the stadium is because you've got a balance sheet problem. No, I haven't. If it's available to do it, we can do it, and there's no reason for us not to do it, and we're revaluing it properly. Okay, then you've taken a very high-handed approach to valuing players, which, by the way, I think the accountancy principles are wrong. I think you should be able to value players differently. But unfortunately, those principles are the rules that govern the game. If you want the principles changed, put it in front of the EFL and get the rules changed so everybody can change the way they value their players. You can't just unilaterally say, everyone values their players this way, and depreciates them this way, and I'm going to depreciate them that way because it suits my financial structure better.
Actually, Simon, Nick is one of many saying, Jim, push Simon here on this. Ask him to explain this issue of player values and what Derby actually did. Can you do that, Simon, for us? Because this is what it boils down to.
If you've got a player that's worth £1 million, right, he's on a 4-year contract, every year that player will reduce by 250 grand. So at the end of the year, he'll be on your balance sheet, not at £1 million of the first year, but on your balance sheet at 750,000. At the end of year 2, he'll be on your balance sheet of 500,000, and so on and so forth until he's valued at nothing because his contract has been run down. Now, That's a straight line policy of depreciating it over the contract term. What Mel wanted to do was say, I'm not going to depreciate it. If it's a 5-year contract or a 4-year contract, I'm not going to depreciate it by 25% if it's a 4-year contract. I'm going to say it's 10% year 1, 10% year 2, 10% year 3, and 50% or 70% year 4. So he holds the value of the player longer on his balance sheet.
And was that a loophole in the rules?
No, it's an interpretation that they've chosen to put upon it.
I see.
They've chosen to say we don't want to depreciate our players in a straight line, i.e. every year the same amount on a 5-year contract. Every year the player depreciates by 20% on a 5-year contract. We're going to do it differently because we want to prop up our balance sheet at certain times for a different reason. And whilst I agree with the principle of it, the rules don't say you can do that. So they've been caught in a situation where it's very difficult for them to argue that the rest of the sporting bodies aren't doing it that way.
I've got to say, when you explain it like that, it's pretty cut and dry to me.
Well, of course it is. That's why they've been found guilty of it. And Mel knows it.
So they get in there first this morning with this statement, and Derby are saying at the end of it, the club looks forward to competing in the Championship next season.
But Derby aren't saying Derby aren't contesting the verdict, they're contesting the sanction.
Yeah.
Derby aren't saying, outrageous, how dare you? The principle of what you're saying is fundamentally wrong. We've done nothing wrong. They're saying, we'll have the $100,000 fine, but we're not taking points.
Yeah. Would you do the same?
If I felt I was right,
if you were Derby, would you do the same?
Stick your $100,000 fine up where the sun don't shine. I'm coming back at you because you've got no principle for doing anything with me. But they'll take the $100,000 fine.
Yeah.
But they don't want the points. And the points, I don't think that they will have the courage to make it retrospective. I think it will open up a precedent that's not been seen before and take it back to a season. And you've got Sheffield Wednesday that didn't have this happen to them. They had points totals, deductions carried to the following season rather than the seasons that the offence occurred in. So
but Simon, if they are taking this as seriously as they should, retrospective or not, other clubs would say, hit them now with a points deduction and send them down.
Yeah, you might say that's the clubs that have vested interest in an outcome that betters their position. But
that's in the interest of fairness.
But you be careful of what precedents you want set when your circumstances aren't the same as the people that are getting sanctioned.
What's your gut instinct? What's going to happen?
They'll get a points penalty. They'll get 2 points penalties. If the EFL appeal, they'll get a points penalty for breaching the amortisation rules. And they'll get a points penalty if the recalculations on their balance sheets take them above £39 million losses. They're toast. They're done. They're going to get 12 points.
Which means they're down.
No, they're going to start this season coming up with a 12-point penalty.
So it won't be retrospective.
So Wayne Rooney will have a bigger excuse. Besides being a useless manager, he'll have a bigger excuse now because they've got a 12-point penalty.
Gee. Oh, well, I mean, he kept them up, Simon, to be fair.
No, he didn't. Someone scoring a goal from Cardiff in the 88th minute kept him up.
Well, it's a crazy situation, isn't it? I mean, again, I asked the question, how can this situation be allowed to drag on for months like this? Because 7 weeks from now, the new season is underway. And as we sit here debating this, we still don't know which division Derby are going to be in.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Thursday morning, 10 till 1. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.